G'day guys, welcome to Toward the Games, Brisbane 2032. Luttsy with you with Chris Jones, the editor of the Courier Mail, as always. G'day Chris, how are you?
Oh, I'm very excited, Luttsy, because you are no longer in Brisbane. You are...
So is that why you're excited?
I'm always excited when you're overseas.
Just because I'm thousands of miles away from you?
How good is this technology? We're not even... Oh, it's amazing.
I'm live from Dubai right now. I'm live from World Expo 2020. Which is confusing a lot of people, the same way that Tokyo 2020 confused a lot of people because it's actually 2021 and about to be 2022. Yeah. But for branding purposes, it has remained that way. And I've been here for the last week sampling the world, Chris, and it's on a site 600 football fields large, World Expo Dubai. So think of South Bank. How many football fields would South Bank be?
Not 600. I'd say Luttsy.
No, it's huge. It's vast. It's the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's been an incredible sort of consistent 5 days of moving my way around 198 country pavilions and getting some messages of where the world sees the future, the next 10 years, which is apt given this podcast. I think there's a lot of things we can garner from this. And I also had a good look at the Australian pavilion also. And we'll hear from the Commissioner General, Dubai World Expo Australia, Justin McGowan, who I caught up with yesterday to hear his thoughts on where things are heading, and also the push there is within Australia now and within the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade that Justin works for this major events sort of bid for Australia over the next 10 years, including events like, World Cups, Swimming World Championships, Athletics World Championships, which they're working very hard on as well. So plenty happening in the Olympic sphere over here in Dubai at the moment. How's things back home, mate? Any committee chat?
We've got some committee chat coming up, Luttsy, but like always,
nice.
let's save that for a little bit later in the podcast. I do have a question for you, Luttsy. Actually, two questions. The first one is, I can't see you for the first time, and so I'd like to know what outfit you've decided to wear for episode 7. And secondly, as you're going around those 198 country pavilions, did you get the Expo 88 style passport and get it stamped at every pavilion?
I have a plethora, Christopher, of stamps in the official Expo 2020 passport. It's yellow. I'm going to bring it home to you. I might even gift it to you. I'd say at this stage I've got over 60 pavilion stamps. Of course, Australia, just running through. I've got the Aqua Roots, which is Hungary. I've got the Russian Federation, Canada. Yes. Just running through here. Kuwait, France, Venezuela, Philippines, the Czech Republic, Portugal, Azerbaijan, the United States of America, Qatar, Sweden, Lithuania, Brazil. You asked me. Slovenia was excellent. Went to Slovakia yesterday. Had about 8 hot women and a cool rooftop bar. That was my favourite so far. So it's been on. It's been World Expo on 88 on steroids.
Wow, there you go. That's very exciting. Imagine if the opening ceremony of the Olympics went as quick as that through the countries.
That's all you need. Just España, Ukraine, Monaco, New Zealand.
And 6 attractive ladies.
Kazakhstan, Great Britain. I went to one called the Baden-Württemberg House. I believe that's a southern state of Germany. They have their own, with a terrific rooftop bar. It's mostly been about rooftop bars for me.
And so what's the T-shirt that you're wearing today, Luttsy?
I've got some Expo 88. It's not Expo 2020 yes. Sort of merchandise. Not the greatest. I'm trying to pick one out for you. Your Christmas present, which yes. Obviously will be somewhat late, is likely to be from elsewhere in my travels. I wasn't happy with the quality of World Expo 2020 merchandise, and secondly the price.
Yeah, right. Unlike Tokyo, they actually had people, so they could put a decent price on it.
100%, yeah. So don't worry, you'll get a Christmas present. I'm just not sure what it is yet, but I am wearing a World Expo 2020 rashi at the moment because it's Dubai. They have a lot of rashi sort of style material.
You got a swimming pool in the hotel room?
Yeah, no, I haven't swam once here, to be honest with you, but that's okay. I'll be using that back home in the official skins cancer capital of the world, Queensland.
Tell us about the Australian Pavilion at World Expo.
We'll hear from Justin McGowan talking about the inspirations of that. In relation to World Expo 88 and the differences between the pavilions, the biggest difference is just that every country in the world is hell-bent on sustainability at the moment, which it wasn't quite in World Expo 88. You're seeing everything from hydrogen cars to the lessening of your carbon footprint. My new favourite word in the world, Chris, is mobility. Now, mobility is a wonderful term. The Australian Pavilion is in the mobility sector of the World Expo. Mobility means everything from how we get around and transport ourselves over the next 10 to 20 years, which I think is a critical thing in relation to how we get people around during the Olympic Games, but also mobility in how do we think moving forward. It's a very fluid term. It's the buzzword here in Dubai. Every country's talking about mobility. How are we sustainably moving forward through all these areas? And I think even though it does sound a little bit wanky, there is something in it for us moving forward as well. Things like the transport to the Sunshine Coast, as far as light rail or heavy rail. There's a Branson inspired. There's about 3 or 4 different sort of shuttle, sort of tube shuttle type of services that the world's going crazy about here at the moment, about transporting 8 to 10 people in a small sort of shuttle sort of situation at 900 kilometres an hour. So you'd be at Maroochydore Beach in about 12 minutes from the city. So this stuff excites me. This is where the world's heading.
Yeah, okay.
And we've got to get out of the square and start thinking about this with the Olympic Games.
12 minutes?
Yeah, crazy stuff, like super fast speed stuff. You've seen some of the technology around the world where they're starting to look at, getting people around in essentially little canisters where they just shoot through via wind propulsion or whatever it is. The world's going crazy about it. So I'm bringing that intelligence back to Australia, which is exciting.
Now, did the Australian Pavilion therefore feature City Cats as part of its display?
It did not. City Cats did not get a run. It was interesting. You went through a little sort of an LED lit sort of maze sort of pathway beginning where they showed a lot of little TV screens popped up with Australian kids giving messages, obviously a large Indigenous Australian representation. Then you move into a room which has a 360-degree screen around you, sort of showing a lot of landscapes. There's a tourism arm to it. A lot of the world's pavilions didn't go heavy on tourism. Australia was about 50-50 with tourism and then sustainability and how we're moving forward in a universally positive way, which is what a lot of the pavilions were talking about. But then there's a massive gift shop at the end of it as well. But it was pretty impressive. I like the messages they were throwing out. The Australian Pavilion also had a large forecourt, so it looked friendly moving in. The message they wanted to get, there was going to be Australia's a friendly place and an easily accessible place. They had the traditional Australian food and coffee, and then the beers and things like that there as well. There's live music, Australian bands which they'd harnessed from basically around Europe at the moment because of COVID. But you had an Australian country band based in Nashville. You had two sisters known as Sissos who were Berlin-based that were singing Australian songs and sang Paul Kelly and Powderfinger and John Farnham yesterday when I was out there. So it was a good feel. I think the Australian Pavilion's a huge tick for what we're doing. And as we're going to hear from Justin McGowan as well, it's a great spot to be able to do business with the world. You've got every single, as far as the media is concerned, everyone's there, and also from a trade perspective, they've been able to garner a lot of support for businesses and projects in Australia from internationally, which they wouldn't be previously been able to do without that sort of connect. So it's been a successful operation for the Australian Pavilion here.
Now, you talk about Justin McGowan. You had a long chat with him yesterday, your time, I understand. What was the most interesting thing that he said that was relevant to Brisbane's lead into the 2032 Games?
I think the most interesting thing was in relation to these events on a sporting perspective that we because of the fact we have the Olympic Games now in 2032. Events that we would have not been able to bid for, we would have bid for and probably been rank outsiders to attain, we're now at the forefront of. Events like in 2020, we got 2022, 2023 coming up with cricket and soccer World Cups here in Australia. 2027's a big year. We went through, I think, a couple of episodes ago, Chris, some of the events that we're going to have a crack at. And essentially now, because of the Olympic Games, we're at the forefront of. We're basically favourites to be able to host them. There's a World Athletics Champs, I think, in 2029 as well. So that's exciting. And Justin was able to tell us the amount of work that's been going into that from a bureaucratic level, from a government level. There's a huge work behind the scenes. There's I forget the exact terminology he uses, but it's something like a green and gold campaign that is actively happening behind the scenes now to try and maintain relevance in a cultural and sporting sense across the next 10 years leading into the Olympic Games. It's all focusing still on Brisbane and South East Queensland 2032, but the need to be able to leverage as soon as possible through major events, not just sporting, but predominantly sporting events over that time. And the sort of stuff that we're unaware is even happening behind the scenes where the wheels are already in motion to be able to attain these events.
Well, maybe we should have a little listen to what Justin had to say.
Let's grab some snippets of Justin right now. This is the Commissioner General Dubai World Expo Australia, so he's basically in charge of everything that Australia is doing here at World Expo Dubai 2020.
So we're fortunate to have somewhat of a starting point. Every World Exposition has a theme, and the theme for this expo was connecting minds, creating the future. And then there was a number of sub-themes which included opportunity, sustainability and mobility. So we find ourselves in the mobility district, and the way in which we interpret that is not just the mobility of people and goods and transport, but the mobility of ideas and knowledge and how that so I guess that's how it's manifested, how we've projected Australia, that we're a really clever nation as well as a beautiful nation. So when you think about the event, this being 6 months or being Olympics 2 weeks plus 2 weeks of the Paralympics, it's years in the planning. So we've built a fully fledged building here, 3,500 square metres. We're capable of hosting hundreds, if not thousands, of events across that 6 months. So we've managed to achieve getting access to countries and nations that we typically wouldn't have access to, particularly in a COVID environment. So in the context of having 192 nations participating here, furthering Australia's interest in terms of a great place to visit, great place to study, great place to invest and do business. Yep. We've been managed to be able to secure over $200 million worth of contracts in helping the UAE prepare for the event and run the event. We've managed to secure a lot of inbound investment for Australia in terms of major infrastructure projects, but also just solidify some of those relationships that we do have around the world, given that it has been difficult to relate or to communicate with other nations. We know that sport is a part of Australian culture. It's a part of our DNA, that unique power of sport to bring people, communities, countries together. So we utilise that, and that's why Australia has a sports diplomacy strategy. So we have a sports diplomacy strategy 2030, which really differentiates ourselves from other nations where we do recognise the power of sport. So there's such great opportunities to promote the upcoming sporting events, and we know you may be familiar with the 10 years of green and gold, where we're pushing our sporting agenda over the next 10 years. And when countries see how Australia is a safe pair of hands in terms of running these events, then it's a no-brainer that we are managing more and more of these. And I think the impact to the economy, and thinking back to the Commonwealth Games with the business delegations that ran alongside the major events. So people don't realise. They see the sporting event and they see the infrastructure that we invest in, and they see the tourism benefit by people coming to these events. But in parallel to that, government works extremely hard in terms of attracting investment, supporting small businesses and getting people to have that conversation about how we can do business outside of the sporting realm.
And as a part of all that, as a nation or as a region like South East Queensland, you want to make sure that we talk about this on the podcast a lot as well. The quality of life, that you develop cities that are great to live in, which we're lucky in Australia that we have.
Expos and major events, when we do have visitors coming in, it's all about challenging the perceptions that people have of your country. So they may think that we're very relaxed. They may think that we've got great, flora and fauna and kangaroos and dig stuff out of the ground, whatever they think of Australia, shrimps on the barbie, that we're actually really clever. So Australia, with CSIRO in particular, we're in the top 1% of R&D countries in the world. We're pretty good at innovation and inventing stuff. And, people don't know that we invented Wi-Fi or the black box recorder or Google Maps or cochlear ear implant, right? People don't know that. That I guess that's our opportunity, that once we get them in, then we can have that conversation with them, hey, we're actually really clever at a whole range of things.
Yeah, there he is, Justin McGowan. So
Wow, that was-
pretty impressive fella running things over here in Dubai at the moment, all things World Expo. And as you can hear there, there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes we don't know about, which is encouraging to hear. And Justin seems pretty enthusiastic and optimistic about the way things are heading in these early stages relating to 2032, which is great.
Yeah, now I would say what was interesting in that, but by the magic of podcast, I haven't yet listened to your interview with Justin, unlike the listeners.
So you wouldn't have a clue.
I wouldn't have a clue what he just said, but I'm sure it was fascinating and very, very interesting and very relevant to this podcast, Luttsy. Well done.
Absolutely. No, it really was. So, you'll have a listen live, Chris, and go, oh, yeah, look, he was very relevant. That's excellent. Hey, look, we should have a quick break and come back. I know I've been promised committee chat ×2, which excites me. I'm on the other side of the world. I'm alone, and I'm excited. Yeah, hey guys, thanks for listening to us. This is episode 7 of Toward the Games, Brisbane 2032. Luttsy live from Dubai World Expo. This time around, Chris Jones, editor of the Courier Mail, is in Nova Studios in Brisbane. Jonesy?
Yeah, I am here at in your studio at Tenerife. It's wonderful. I'm wondering actually what you're actually doing in Dubai. I assume that we're doing this episode so that it's a tax write-off for you, Luttsy. You can claim that your trip to Dubai was work due to the extended interview with Justin.
If you look at my Instagram at Luttsy, you'll see several photos showing you how hard I have been working on this trip. So that's very important.
We might repost a couple of them to the Toward the Games.
That would help me if you could.
Instagram, yes. It's at Toward the Games on Instagram. Yes.
Yeah, of course, and don't forget to subscribe as well if you haven't already.
So true.
But committee chat.
Just imagine you can listen to this every 2 weeks.
Oh, I know, right? Imagine getting this in your ears every 2 weeks. Or if you listen to every episode once a week, probably too much.
Yeah. Well, might pick up some little, Easter eggs in there.
That's what it's all about. Little gifts to yourself. That's what this is.
Yes.
Any news on the home front related to committee chat? Anything? What's happening?
Has been. Well,
you promised me.
I have promised you some committee chat. But firstly, I wanted to go to an interesting event that we at the Courier Mail held a couple of weeks ago now, which was the Future Brisbane Our Golden Opportunity Lunch.
Yes.
500 of Brisbane's finest got together at the RNA to listen to a lively panel discussion that we'll get to as part of committee chat. But also we had the Paris 2024 Organising Committee CEO Etienne Thebois gave the keynote. Now, his recommendation for Brisbane was that we need to be ambitious and get a bit crazy. Now, I can't do the accent. I'm not even going to try to do the accent, but you probably just imagine a Frenchman.
Give us that key line he gave us.
He said, it's a fantastic opportunity. Don't let it pass. You have to make big plans. You need to get a bit crazy and ambitious.
I love it. I love it. And they are. They're getting crazy and ambitious. And, I don't want to say that this podcast is ahead of the game, but it is ahead of the game, Chris, because in one of the very first episodes, I'm saying maybe episode 2, we spoke of the opening ceremony and the opportunity there is for Brisbane, given the Olympics and the way they're heading, that why do we have to have an opening ceremony just in a stadium at the Gabba? Why can't we share it with the greater Brisbane, greater southeast Queensland, and use the river, have the teams coming up the river and make the city centre with fireworks, with the central hub of the games? And now what has France come out and done?
Well, exactly.
What have they said? They've basically green-lighted that.
So, the Magical Podcast, it is now Tuesday, December 14, and overnight, the organisers of the Paris 2024 Olympics have indeed announced the biggest opening ceremony in history, which will include a 6-kilometre parade of athletes in boats along the river.
There you go.
Wow.
I'm not saying you laughed at me, Chris, but there was a sense of I felt like I got some backlash that I was doing a comedic piece when that went to air on the podcast. France 2024 are doing precisely what we said we should do for the Brisbane Olympic Games.
Now, the only downside with your idea, and we do have just under 3,900 days to sort this out.
Yes.
But we talked about, well, you talked about them going down the river in a fleet of city cats.
Yes.
Now, the Paris organisers have revealed that to move those athletes, they're going to need a flotilla of 160 boats. We currently have 23 city cats and those little kitty cats. So
that's all right, mate. I've got 3
fold.
mates with boats. I've got 3 mates with boats, and that's just me. So if we can't find 160 boats in Queensland, in southeast Queensland, in Australia, well, we shouldn't be hosting the Olympic Games, Chris. I'm suggesting
there'd be 160 tinnies in Boondall alone, wouldn't there, Luttsy?
100%. Just in the mangroves behind the entertainment centre, there's 160 boats. A few of them are unlicensed, but we can fix that. That's easy. But I mean, honestly, this is. I mean, it's got. I think it's brilliance. I think it's absolute brilliance that even though we spoke about this, half in jest early on in the podcast. Why not open it up like France are doing to the greater public? I mean, the first time I was probably triggered by France, to be honest, during the closing ceremony of the Tokyo Games, where they went to France and you had that sea of people stretched down those sort of those public.
Well, that's what it's going to be like. There's 600,
parkways from the Eiffel Tower to whatever
people.
It was, but that's the sort of scenes we want to see. I think
they're saying 600,000 people will watch on, and for the first time ever, of course, it won't be a ticketed event if it's in the middle of the city.
Brilliant.
Now that
Absolutely
is
brilliant.
that is thinking as Mr. Thurbois said. That's being ambitious and being a bit
that's
crazy.
Being a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Thinking, why are we? Where in the rule book does it say everything's got to be in a stadium? Like, why are we limiting it to 50 or 60,000 people? It's the more I think about it, the more the more old fashioned and whatever that word is, Chris. It doesn't make sense anymore. Traditional and there's a great word there. I can't think of it.
Google it.
Doesn't matter.
I'll
Google it later. But I mean, I think it's a smart move by France. I think what's happening already is that France, even LA, for instance, will be looking very closely now to seeing, okay, where's the benchmark? Where's the curve going for the Olympic Games between now and over the next 10 years? And I said this to Justin yesterday. I said that the danger is that when we look at where Brisbane is in 2032, we want to be hosting the greatest event ever seen, certainly the best Olympics ever, but potentially the biggest and greatest event in the history of the world of this kind. How do we stay above the curve? Because France is going to be doing special stuff. And I know you have your doubts about Los Angeles. I'm telling you, they're going to crush it. And how do we continue that on an upward trajectory from what France and LA have offered us? And that's going to be the problem. That's why conversations have to start now. And while we haven't completely worked out the City Cat chat, it's important that at the very least we're setting some structures in line, I guess, that are at least giving us ideas of how we then find the technology to be able to do these things, how we actually do it. But we've got to have the ideas and the concepts in place so we can maintain that and follow trends and see what's happening over the next 10 years and make sure then when we get to 2032, it is actually the greatest show on earth.
Yeah, and exactly. And because the benchmark needs to be that we put on for the world the best ever Olympics. Every 4 years, that's, I suppose Tokyo had it stolen away from them, but I'm sure they were an incredible games, weren't they, in terms of the sporting event?
Undoubtedly, if given the full opportunity, Chris, Tokyo would have been the greatest games of all. They had the best venues. It was the transport. They had everything nailed, and unfortunately, in the end, only 10% of that was really used.
Do you know what? In terms of emotion, I wonder if Tokyo will go down in history as, the greatest games of all because of the way that it brought the world together and gave us that sort of sense of unity and hope and so on. When many millions of us were still in lockdown right around the world, and 18 months into the pandemic.
Well, I guess we can only speak from an Australian perspective, but the people, when you speak about the Tokyo Games, just from the impact it had on us as viewers, and I guess we were lucky in regard to the fact that it was kind of on our watch, if you like, that the time difference was minimal, which also helped us with television viewing and things like that. But for me, it's certainly that this Olympics impacted on me more than any recent Olympics over the last 20 years. And as we said, I think if it had the full potential, it would have been an incredible games in every way. But I think definitely it still showcased what the Olympics can be, just from a competitor and from a visual sort of television event sort of style thing as well.
Well, I mean, I certainly opened my mind, this idea of the flotilla. Now that it's just gone from your idea to Paris stealing it from you, I wonder if we might see Agro light the flame. They've obviously been listening.
Exactly, they're clearly listening. I mean, in 10 years, they could be flying in drones, in drone capsules. I mean, who knows what's going to be happening in 10 years? But it's just important we get these outside the square ideas in place.
What could go wrong?
And you know what? Maybe the Brisbane idea of the flotilla is already outdated because France have done it. So maybe we've got to up it again.
10,000 athletes flown in with 10,000 drones. Nothing could go wrong.
Well, I mean, I know what you're going to say here when I suggest this, but World Expo, I forget which pavilion it was. It was one of the European pavilions. Yeah. They're now moving heavy freight on what basically considered flying whales, and I know those. I know what you're going to think. You're going to think back to the disaster of the Hindenburg. But that's back. There's flying whales, the size of 300 meters long, now doing freight carries, things like that, through the sky, and that's the future in certain countries. I'm suggesting that maybe there's huge airships that may be floating through Brisbane.
Wow! Did they have
2032? We can't rule it out.
They didn't have one of these on show at the.
Well, not physically, but there was a video. There was an artist's impression.
So they don't exist.
Look, if it's at Expo, it exists. It was an artist's impression of what potentially Kazakhstan's doing at the moment.
This is like claiming that Leonardo da Vinci drew the first plane, sort of, isn't it?
Well, he drew
a thing that he called the flying machine.
What did he do? He inspired others. He inspired others to take to the air. The Wright brothers wouldn't have existed. The Wright brothers would have been a country music band playing music in pubs in Sydney, if not for Leonardo da Vinci.
The Wright brothers opening tonight for the Peter van den Hoogen Band.
Sorry, I'm having a coughing fit. But yes, there's an opening ceremony right there. So that's exciting. Look, I know you're putting it off, but we need committee chat at some point, and we're running out of time.
Well, let's have a little break. Well, you're the host, so up to you. I've got the content. Whatever you want to do, Luttsy.
Yeah, let's have a brief break, and then we'll come back with more exciting stuff, including, Tiffany, this is where you come in with some committee chat. This is episode 7 toward the Games, Brisbane 2032. Luttsy live from Dubai World Expo for episode 7. Chris Jones back in Brisbane, the editor of the Courier Mail. Jonesy, committee chat. BOCOG chat, we have another name. Of course, we've spoken of the Magnificent 7, the so far unannounced Famous 5, and within all that, we have another appointment, I believe.
We do. Before I get to that, the reason that I intentionally lifted the little veil and sort of said that it's December 14 that we're recording this is because we do expect that in the next week or so we might, Luttsy, get the list of appointees from either the Prime Minister or the Premier. Remember, each of them can appoint 4 to the BOCOG. Right. And so just flagging that, but obviously we have no control over when that might happen, so therefore it is now December 14 if that happens overnight. But there in case, Luttsy. But I can tell you that, there's another person who will join the BOCOG. Now, the reason that this person will join the BOCOG is the extension of one of those John Coates clauses. You remember John Coates had a few
Yes.
backup clauses written into the legislation
basically
just to make sure that he remains on the board no matter what happens.
Yes,
And one of those fallbacks was that it says that any Australian who is a member of the International Olympic Committee is on the board. Now, as we joked about a couple of episodes ago, the only person who that fits is somebody by the name of John Coates.
John Coates? Coates, that's right. Yeah.
Now, apparently...
He'll be on this podcast hopefully in the new year.
This is exciting. I heard from Coatesy the other day, now that we were texting.
Yeah, you're very close to him.
And he is up for coming on the podcast. Hopefully, Luttsy, the first episode back in the new year will be the John Coates episode. Couple of special Christmas ones to go. We'll talk about in a minute before that. But Coatesy is up for toward the games now because you have to because there was this clause of anyone on the IOC. Of course, then you've also got to say, hey, anyone on the International Paralympic Committee from Australia also automatically gets a seat, of which there was nobody until today, where Robin Smith, who's the Vice President of Virtus, has been appointed to the International Paralympic Committee and therefore will be our next person.
So where's Robin from?
BOCOG. Look, she's basically a sports administrator. She's a coach, administrator, over a long period for people with intellectual impairments. Yes. So she's. I don't know much about her, I will admit, Luttsy, but she's.
So this is the BOCOG board you're talking about.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Now listen.
So Robin's Australian, though. She's the CEO of Sport Inclusion Australia and the Vice President of the.
You know how to use Google.
Okay. So this is brilliant. Is it a 50-50 split male-female on the board, isn't it?
Well, overall, it has to be at least a 50-50 split. Are you doing some sums there, Luttsy?
I'm just doing sums to see what that means. But
interesting, isn't it?
That's interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
So I think that takes it to 21. Who are going to be on the BOCOG, assuming that John Coates doesn't have to use one of his fallbacks, in which case, of course, it would go to 22. So a nice tight little board.
Yes. We've got to find a table big enough in Brisbane.
Actually, do you know what is interesting? Seeing as we're madly Googling Robin Smith, who's obviously a prominent member of the Paralympic movement, it does remind me that we talk a lot about the Olympics, don't we? We talk about the 16 days of magical sport, and we do so forgetting that you've also got the Paralympics. And
that's a very good point.
So I do apologise. This was raised at one of those future events, the Gold Coast Bulletin event by Curtis McGrath, who said, hey, his wish is that when we talk about the Olympics, we talk about the Olympics and the Paralympics. And he pointed out...
a month.
That this should be something led by the Minister, the Premier, who is currently only the Minister for the Olympics. She is not the Minister for the Olympics and the Paralympics. An oversight, he says, that hasn't yet been resolved. So that was...
So who's the Paralympic Minister?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway...
Yeah, and it's a month of festivities, because we have been saying, and you know what, just yesterday when I was interviewing Justin, I'm not sure it actually made the final cut of the podcast, but he corrected me and said how it is. It's the 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks. It's actually a month of festivities we'll be enjoying in 2032, which is great. So we'll be more. Let's make sure we're tighter on that one, eh?
Now, you have Netflix? You have Netflix?
I do, mate. Yes.
Yep. On Netflix, there is a wonderful documentary who Beck Frizzell, who is on the Australian Paralympic Committee, put me onto, which is called Rising Phoenix, and it's all about the Paralympic movement. And I recommend it, seeing as you have been like me, totally ignoring the Paralympics so far in this podcast toward both the games.
Yes, indeed. Okay, Rising. I have heard of that. I have not seen it yet, but I'll have a week free coming up in Prague where I'll be able to watch that.
Are you flying Wanker Air to Prague, or what's the...
Business. I'm flying business class. We call it business with a D. Business class on Wanker Air.
Excellent.
And you're not invited.
Really not. I'm quite happy here.
Platinum member, buddy.
I'm quite happy standing here by myself.
No, you're not.
In a studio in Tenerife. in beautiful.
You're standing. That's interesting.
Beautiful Olympic and Paralympic city.
That's a power play. I've ever seen it. You standing. You'd stand at the board table if they let you on it too, wouldn't you?
Well, Buzz, who was very kind to set us up and dealt with some technical issues that we had here, has set me up in this studio, and he hasn't given me a chair. So he sorted out the technical issues, but the physical issues, Buzz, you've let me down. Where is he? Is he in that one?
Buzz didn't bring any seats in. Well, that's great. Is Buzz standing as well?
No, he looks like a stander. Hang on, can I see him?
No, it's hard to tell with him. Yeah. He's in that middle height range. It's hard to tell.
I can't see him.
That's all right.
Hey,
okay, is that the only committee chat?
No, there's another committee that's emerged, Luttsy. So, we talk a lot about, in this podcast, we talk a lot about the need for this to be more than a magical month of sport in 11 years from now, just under 3,900 days. We talk about the opportunity of the legacy of the Olympics to the region and to the state. And I have been a bit concerned about this, and I've raised this a few times on the podcast already, that if we don't focus on what the legacy opportunities are, then we're going to miss out. Now, I moderated a panel at the Future Brisbane lunch that you politely declined my invitation to, but 500
honestly,
other
I would have
Brisbane
dearly
people
loved to have
turned
been
up.
there. I had another commitment, Chris. I'm actually not happy that I missed that.
I think it was a commitment that fell through, but that's fine. You were on your couch at home. 500 of us were listening very, very intently. Anyway, I moderated a panel, and on the panel was the Premier and the Minister for the Olympics, not yet Paralympics, Anastasia Palaszczuk. And I asked her, well, what is the process that you're going to put in place to get the best minds? Not just the BOCOG's going to be an IOC-led committee process. What else are we going to do to capture the ideas of the best minds? And she responded to that question by announcing the establishment of what she calls a legacy committee for the Brisbane Games, where she says,
yes,
let's get the best and brightest minds, the best innovators out there together and work towards 2032 to make sure that we don't miss the great opportunities outside of just the sporting events, stadiums and, road and rail infrastructure.
Which is essential, Chris. And I'm not saying it was your idea, but it kind of was your idea.
Yeah, but you know how I love committees, so it's not surprising that the establishment of yet another committee.
But Chris, I just not. I don't know. I'm trying to work out in my brain, in my little pea-sized brain, how we connect the creative to the committee part. I get the committee part. We need these brilliant businessmen and women that can reach all corners of the globe and extract all the greatness out and do the business side of it. But connecting to that create is what's going to, as our French friend said, bring out the crazy, bring out outside the box. So is legacy thinking about the harnessing ideas and how we do that, how we set new benchmarks?
It should be, and it should be everything else outside of that IOC process. What worries me, two things, is that it's a committee, and it's a committee established by the government, and we can all guess how the risk that might have of actually nothing ever happening. So let's hope that it's established in a way that feeds advice not only into government but also the business community and creates a vision that everyone can sign up to and some clear benchmarks along the way. But I'm also concerned that the government might set it up as a sort of subcommittee of the BOCOG. That would be a terrible outcome. And
I agree.
This is people who are far too important, visionary, whatever, to actually sit on the BOCOG itself, which is, as I say, an IOC body essentially, and just care about Brisbane, Southeast, and Queensland.
This is your Baz Luhrmann kind of people.
Correct. Who is the Queensland Elon Musk?
Yeah, 100%. And you're right. And these people they care about it, but they don't want to sit under a committee. You know what I mean? Like under another committee. So it needs to be done, structured in a way where the only way we're going to get these great minds is if we do it in a way where they're allowed to creatively show their wares. Yeah. So hopefully, and you know what? In fairness, like we speak of government and politics as being like, I don't want to just make it sound like it's an evil word or phrase. because some of the politicians I've spoken to and people in that realm are also scared that if done the wrong way, it could go that way and become a political boxing match, whatever you like. So some of our great politicians and bureaucrats, and we do have some very good ones, are also wanting to make sure that we don't go down that channel, that it does we do maintain this idealistic sort of view that we have a bunch of different great people just being able to do what they do without getting tied up in bureaucracy. So hopefully, again, within the public sector and the private sector, in both ways, we need to get the right people sorted now and let them work in a way where they're going to be most effective.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Luttsy, of course. Look, I think it's very important. And what's most important from my perspective is now we have 2 committees for our committee chat going forward on this.
Well, I love that. I mean, maybe we scrap the name toward the Games, Brisbane 2032, and we have 2 podcasts called Committee Chat 1 and Committee Chat 2.
Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
It's not the greatest idea, but, regardless.
Hey,
well, that's great. Yeah. I mean, anything else you want to talk about? Well, you've still got me on the line.
What I want to talk about before you get on that Wanker Air flight to Prague.
Yeah, well, I've got a flight to Prague tonight.
Yeah, is the 2 Christmas specials, and maybe you could.
Oh yes. So, can you reveal? We kind of have revealed already, haven't we? But I'm not sure.
So, joining us on the first of the Toward the Games Christmas specials will be Madam Butterfly herself, the legend of the pool, Susie O'Neill, will be joining us for the Christmas Day edition of Toward the Games with a chat that we recorded last week or the week before, Luttsy. It was a great chat. It was very interesting, actually, wasn't it? She was talking about lots of reminiscing about the Sydney Olympics and some stories there that she hasn't ever told.
Yeah, like one involving a major rugby league superstar / is he immortal or future immortal? I can't remember.
Well, he's going to be one. Let's just call him one.
I think he's future immortal. But that's a great story. And who better, by the way? And she does touch also, obviously, on her favourite parts of Sydney Games in particular, even though she was a 3-time Olympian. But in that context, she talks about her favourite Olympics, what made it her, from an athlete's perspective, what made the Sydney Games great, whether it gave put more pressure on the athletes or less pressure on the athletes, did it help Australian athletes, which are all very important things we also have to consider. It's not only about the athletes, but the athletes obviously play an integral part in the games. Yeah. So I think the chat with Susie, as well as just being a nice Christmassy feel about it on Christmas Day, it'd be a great way, as you're opening the presents Christmas morning, I think it's going to be a great thing to have on in the background.
Plug your AirPods in. Don't even have to listen to the family.
Yeah, you have to listen to Auntie. I've got to make sure I use an auntie's name. I don't have an auntie here. Auntie June. Make sure that you don't have to listen to Auntie June's story about how they've moved to the Currumbin Valley.
We said we had 2 Christmas specials coming up.
Yes.
What's the
so this one will go to air pre-Christmas?
I think after we might do this one. Looking at
okay, well this is a great one. This gets very reminiscent. This is very nostalgic, if you like. This is a Brisbane love story because we have the one and the only Trent Dalton, author extraordinaire, Mr. Brisbane, as I like to call him, if I wasn't already that myself. Sorry, Shrindog. But
I think
Trent
you'll find
Dalton
that Trent is
us.
the thinking woman's crumpet.
You're calling him the thinking woman's crumpet? We'll have to run that through the censorship. I'm not sure if that's rude or not. But the thinking woman's crumpet, Trent Dalton, will be joining us for the second Christmas special, and it is an absolute cracker. We've already recorded that. It's magical.
And it involves a story by John Coates, who stumbled on Trent, who was sitting by the side of a road asking for people to tell him love stories for his new book, Who Walks Past But Mr. Olympics himself, John Coates, and proceeded to tell Trent the most wonderful Olympics love story I've ever heard, Luttsy.
That's the best tease in history. Chris, if you don't listen to this podcast, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing?
Good news is, looking at the clock, we have managed to speak for 2 weeks, and it is now Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, Luttsy.
Merry
You've
Christmas,
missed your
everyone.
flight. Wanker Air is already in Prague, and you're in the Dubai hotel.
As we record, as you said, we're only 11 days from Christmas, so it's close as we record. So you might be hearing us a little closer to Christmas. Christmas specials coming up, and some big co-hosts / guests joining us in the new year, including John Coates and hopefully the soon-to-be-announced Minister for the Paralympics and already Minister for the Olympics, Anastasia Palaszczuk. I'm told by Jonesy will be joining us in the new year as well, amongst a cast of thousands of others, as we count down the 3,900 days or so to go until Brisbane 2032. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram toward the games, and give us 5 stars wherever you can. Give us your feedback. We'd love that. And any insight you have. Maybe you've heard some stuff that we don't know about yet regarding Southeast Queensland's 2032 Olympic Games. Jonesy, I'll speak to you probably post-Christmas now, won't I?
Yes. Well, I don't know what you're up to in Prague, Luttsy, but Merry Christmas. Enjoy your time, and may there be many rooftop bars for your festive season.
Yes, I'll just be standing under mistletoe hoping that Chris Hemsworth, who will be in Prague while I'm there, will stumble upon me. That sounded... I'm sorry, Chris, you involved in that sentence. Not you, Chris. I mean Chris Hemsworth.
Tiff.
Both Chris's.
Tiff, we might want to cut out that last bit. Merry Christmas, Luttsy.
See you soon, people.